I got the wife up here working. How you like that work move?
It's beginning of day 2. Chris is picking up a taller ladder from his parents, and Kobe and I, Kobe, are going to get some biscuits.
Hey, boo.
See some drywall.
Yep, got some drywall.
It's been 2 weeks since we last showed you our ceiling project, so we want to pop on and show you the progress we've made. So the last you saw was our day 1. Day 2, I mostly just sat on the floor handing things up to the ladder for Chris because he was rewiring all of the wiring in the living room and into the bedroom and to the dining room. He got all of the wires from the lowered ceiling rewired back up to the higher ceiling. So it didn't look like much happened that day, but there was a lot of progress made. It was a very tedious job, and I'm very thankful that he knows how to do these things. Just when you thought Chris Forbes had every tool possible, this project has proved that wrong. So we started hanging up the drywall on the ceiling, and by we, I mean I attempted to help, and Chris mostly did it. And we got 2 pieces up, and it was really stressful because sheetrock is like 50 to 60 pounds. So he's lifting that up 12 feet in the air and then trying to drill it in the ceiling. And that was just a lot of work. And then our friends told us about this amazing device called the drywall lift. So we ordered the drywall lift on Amazon. It came faster than we expected. So last weekend, Chris and our brother-in-law Chad finished putting up all of the ceiling. We've been spending a few hours here and there after work, taking down wallpaper, patching holes, just doing lots of little odds and ends, and then really going all out on the weekends to get things done. So this is the end of weekend 3, I believe. And now it's really starting to feel like it's all coming together and the end is in sight.
So I got my partner here, my good buddy. I got the most beautiful camera lady on the planet. So I'm going to walk you through a little bit of what I did with the drywall first. So Catherine talked about it. We we did the first 2 pieces by hand, so literally just climbing up the ladder, holding the 60-pound pieces of drywall and then screwing them up there. And that didn't work out too well. It was real hard to do it. I've got this super duper flimsy ladder that I'm pretty sure was my great-granddad's. So it wasn't exactly safe. So one of Catherine's friends, she told us about a drywall lift, which is basically a crane. You put the piece of drywall on it, and it's got a crank, and it lifts the drywall up to the ceiling, and then you can kind of position it on a ladder and zip it into place. So once we had the drywall lift, my brother-in-law came over, Chad McClellan, and we were able to get that stuff knocked out pretty quick. So this is like in the instructions never to do what I'm doing, but you know.
Once you raise it up to do that.
Yeah. Once we got that done, the wiring in this room was still sandwiched in between where the previous drop ceiling was and the original ceiling. So what I had to do was I pretty much spent a day on it. It was really tedious work. I basically took all that wire and disassembled it from its old socket that was hanging right kind of up here 9 feet in the air, and ripped all that out, disassembled it, and then I ran it up the walls into the original attic, and then ran it back to this box here. And I actually installed a really heavy duty box so we could hang a chandelier from it if we ever wanted to. And it's bolted into both of the joists. The other thing I had to do was cut the hole in the drywall for that wire. So I wired everything up and I got it all in that box. And then when we slapped that drywall up there, I had to cut a hole in that, and I might have shocked the ever living hell out of myself on the top of a 9-foot ladder.
You okay?
Yeah. All right.
That was it.
Turn the electricity off. And so, moving on, after the electrical, we started peeling back some of the wallpaper from this plaster to really get a good idea of what was under there. So here's a trick with these walls. So Catherine's over here removing the wallpaper off the plaster so we can, one, blend in all the work we're gonna do into the existing drywall that we're gonna keep. And then two, we need to eventually paint it, so you don't want that under it. But here's the trick with some of these big holes right here. We got some loose plaster here. I'm gonna remove all that, and I'm gonna get a little aggressive with it, take some chunks out. But actually these irregular breaks are really good for blending because the plaster really likes to grip those better than any, like, if you were to take a circular saw or something to it, do straight cuts, it doesn't like that. The other thing is too, you gotta clean out these keys. So you gotta get rid of all that so that when you put new plaster in there, it can hold on to it. But here's the cheat code with this. We're gonna go in here and we're gonna refasten a lot of this lath in here so we don't have any bumps. Then I'm gonna take some drywall that's about the thickness of this plaster, and I'm gonna cut it to this weird shape, probably remove this. So big Tennessee state shaped piece of drywall. I'm gonna screw it in there, and it's gonna have a little bit of gap between the drywall and the plaster. Then I'm gonna go in there and fill it in, and then I'll do some finishing putty over top of it, and it'll blend right in. You'll never know it's there. It'll look like one seamless wall. So guys, the most important part about working on top of a ladder is to ensure that you got all your tools, but also while you're working, it's really difficult to work with your drink in your hand and tool. So it comes in handy so you can be on the fly and working. But if you get a little, parched, you got your drink right there. Cheers, pro tip. We had no idea what we were getting into. We didn't know if this was drywall still or if it was plaster still. And what we found out was a whole lot of it was plaster. This wall was drywall. That wall has really thin drywall put over plaster, which is an absolute, don't do on a wall because it ruins the reveal of your trim. So we'll have to fix that. But we took all that off, and that's kind of what we spent a few days on, and started patching some of the holes where they had, like a knucklehead, taken a hammer and swung it against the drywall when they were installing the drop ceiling. And honestly, that's been most of the work that we've done, is just fix that silliness. But other than that, the plaster is in excellent condition. We also had to fix this wall here. So originally in this house, there was a big chimney here. Came all the way down, and this is actually the old original floors to this house. You can see where they cut out the floor to get underneath it and disassemble it. So they disassembled the old chimney, and when they installed the lowered ceilings, they built a wall here, but didn't build it all the way up to the original height of the ceiling, the 12-foot ceiling, and I'm not really sure why, but I had to go up there. There's a big hole there. You've probably seen it in some of our videos, and I had to frame that in, and then we had to drywall patch all that because they knocked all the plaster out and put drywall up, except for that tiny little square up there. So I knocked that plaster out, and we drywalled that. So other than that, I mean, that's pretty much most of it. The rest of what we're going to be doing is we're going to go back and kind of fill in some of these plaster spots with putty. And I've got some special stuff that's on the way here next week. It's called Big Wally's Plaster Magic, and I absolutely love that name. And that stuff is designed specifically for plaster walls on historic homes. This is a historic home with plaster walls. And what that stuff does is it actually re-adheres some of the loose plaster back to the lath. And the lath are the boards behind the plaster. And then it'll be like brand new, because the whole idea with this is we've got all this plaster in this room. Probably, I'd say 90% of the walls in here are in great condition. It's just the spots where they were banging around with a hammer when they were installing that old drop ceiling that we've got to fix. So there's no point in ripping everything out to put up new drywall when you've got plenty of good wall there that you can just spend a little bit of time in patching, and you can still keep the original charm of the historic house. So that's what we're gonna do. And so that's kind of everything in a nutshell. So if you have any questions, ask Catherine, because I'm not answering questions. Let me resituate here on my rickety ladder. Any of y'all can do what we're doing right now. It's not hard. A lot of this stuff is kind of common sense, especially this. This is not a renovation. This is, we're just kind of remodeling this area. It's already built. We're not changing any walls. We're not doing anything crazy. We're just going back through some of this old craftsmanship here and just fixing it back up. That's it. You can do it. If you've got something that needs to be resurfaced or brought into the 21st century, I believe in you. You got it. It's not hard. There's tons of people out there that are really good at this stuff, that have tons of videos that are really responsive. Go reach out to them, watch their stuff, and at the end of the day, you can do it. I believe in you. You got it.